When students expressed frustration about what was expected of them, I reminded them about the rubric that they had both in their folders and on Edline, the online program where my school posts assignments and such. I also had them create index card reminders. I was hearing a lot of students saying, "I'm stuck," or "I don't know what to write." I had them make an index card bookmark with trigger questions. For this, I adapted Linda Berger's questions from page 613 of our text, changing the word "you" to "I," keeping it active for my students. She suggests making sub-questions, but I determined that with the 20 questions from Myers and these, my students had enough to work with. Next time, I will guide them as we create our own as a class. Having questions easily accessible seemed to help my students. With guided questions, the entries became a bit more considerate, like this example from Eduardo, my student. I cannot even imagine the panic and fear that all these people had, facing how they must die or they must work. The crematorium was like the door to hell. How could the Nazis kill all of these people like if they were trash, like if they were nothing? If Ellie didn't realize it yet, I think the person that told them to change their ages was an angel. In this situation, they were all going to die, and some random person tells them to change their ages so they're not sent to the crematorium. I do not think it is a coincidence. Once students began to understand that their opinions were what mattered most, they relaxed. Without too much direction from me, students began working together and discussing ideas to help clarify their own opinions and reactions. They found that they were seeking deeper meaning without having to be told. Students came into class and shared facts that they learned about Elie Wiesel from the internet. They wanted me to teach them more about Judaism, about the structure of the Nazi government. Students were writing, speaking, listening, reading, and responding. They began sharing their journals with one another and talking. They all wanted to know how Hitler could do this to an entire group of people. Students became more comfortable expressing their reactions to the text. Here's an example from Mariana about chapter 3. If I were in Ellie's place, I would have questioned God's power too. Thousands of Jews were being sent to concentration camps just so SS officers and other Nazis could be mean to them. There must be something to that. And there was. Jews were missing the things that they needed to have a good chance of living. They were separated from their families, starved, forced to see babies burned, and forced to see and go through inhuman torture. I noticed that Ellie's last words in the chapter are, "The iron gates closed behind us." I literally gulped when I read that. These words as the last words of the chapter, and knowing what a concentration camp's mission is, makes me question too many things. Does the rest of the camp survive? Does all of his family die? If so, when? Does he make friends? Do those friends die? To me, the sentence gives me a bad feeling. Readers' response journals helped build active class discussions. When students went home and actively considered their ideas about the reading, it brought them to class with more to talk about. Some sought clarification. Others wanted to share the conclusions they had drawn. It gave them a greater sense of investment in the reading. With practice, the responses became more sophisticated and thoughtful. Here's an example from my student Peter about the final chapter. I find it disturbing how by the end of the book they simply do not care what happened to the Germans. I mean, yes, they're happy to be liberated, but not a single moment do they think about revenge or about the people who they lost. They only think about food and sleep. And it makes me wonder, would I be any different? A horrible thing happened to the Jewish people. Elie lost his mother and sister, his father, his innocence, his faith, and his will to live. And yet not once throughout the book does he think about revenge. He never feels hatred, and he never loses his faith in humanity. I think that makes him an amazing person, and someone I can really admire. He's also so humble about what he's lived through. Not once does he ever say, "I survived the Holocaust," with a sense of arrogance. He casually says, "I shouldn't have survived. Why me? I was the wrong person," which is actually a quote from him talking to Oprah. I don't know if I could do the same thing. Also, there's something I've been wanting to talk about but couldn't until the end of the book, and that is that Elie never lost the humanity like most of the inmates did. Most inmates began to beat up lower-ranked Jews, forced the weak to give up their soup. Others began to abandon their fathers, and basically abuses whatever power, however small, is given to them. Elie does not think about ditching his father. Does think about ditching his father, but he is instantly ashamed, and even gives up his food for his near-dead father. To me, this is a perfect example of how humans should be. Here are some of the project covers, and some of the samples of the artwork inside. Student feedback. Bruno said he likes it because it helps him organize his ideas, but he didn't like it because it was a lot of work. Jose Andres says that he thinks writing responses offers a good challenge. It helped him to understand the reading better and to focus on summarizing in order to organize his thoughts. Ileana said that the response journals were good because she had fun doing the drawings to show her ideas. It helped her to understand better the story and what people could feel in the time of the Holocaust. Thank you very much for listening and for a great course. Overall, I'm an advocate for readers' response journals and found them very successful. Take care.